My name is Fred Varco. I'm a member of the Professional Activities Committee here. And our guest today is Jack Stone. It's not often that we don't welcome back our guests, but unfortunately Jack has to come back to tell us more about the abduction of his children, progress in his court case or lack of progress, and any new events from the last time he came here. He's seeking sanctions from the American government against Japan under the Goldman Act, and obviously he's trying to implement the convention, the Hague Convention against the abduction of children, but obviously progress is slow. So Jack, go ahead and tell us what the latest bad news is.
Thank you. First, I want to say that my wife is a victim of Japan's sole parental custody system. She's terrified of losing the children she loves. I'm terrified of losing the children that I love. What has happened is my wife brought my child into Japan. She was pregnant with a second child, we didn't know, and she doesn't want to lose her children. Japan needs to implement a joint custody system that all the nations of the world have it, and it's a system that works. There's some important facts here, and I'm getting these facts from police in Japan. The #1 cause of murder, the #1 cause of domestic violence, the #1 cause of adult suicide in Japan is a sole parental custody system. And we all know Japan has the highest child suicide rate in the world. Sole custody is an outdated system, it doesn't work anymore. So at issue right now is in July, the Sendai Family Court is going to make a decision about the return of my child. They have a very strange position, and I'm in a unique position. My child lived with me for 3 years, only with me, since a diaper and stroller, without the mother. And under Japan's 120-year-old Meiji continuity principle system, my child has to be returned to me. So what kind of position are they going to put it? Am I going to be in if they don't order the return of my son, when they order the return of everybody's child returned to the parent who had custody of the child, and he's been with me for 3 years? I'm not going to get into all the facts because I did the last press conference. You go to the last press conference and see that. I want to show you right now a very unique position that you have today. For the first time ever, the Foreign Correspondents Club is letting you see kidnapping from a child's perspective. My child and I have been stranded here for about 3.5 years now. And I'm supposed to be working as a lawyer in America. I was studying to take the Hawaii bar exam to work at the Attorney General's office when all this happened to me. So, the first video I'm going to show you is the Yonezawa police attacking and injuring my child while I'm carrying him in my arms. This video has already gone viral with Japanese parents who've lost custody of their children. Thousands and thousands of Japanese parents saw this and are shocked. And they put it on the internet with subtitles in Japanese. So I'll let you see this first. Here we go.
Yeah.
You are surrounded by police officers. Do you see?
Yes.
What did Dada do? Did Dada do anything wrong?
No.
Are you scared of police? Are you scared of police? Look at my ball. Go away. Are you afraid of police?
Yes.
Okay, did I do anything bad?
No.
Okay, did I hurt Mama?
No.
Did I fight?
No.
Did I raise my voice and yell?
No.
Nothing, right?
Nothing.
So, did I ask Mama to let you stay a few days?
Yes.
And what did Mama say?
No.
Okay, do you want these police bothering us right now?
No.
Do you want to go home?
Yes.
Do you want to go to the station?
Yes.
Are they letting us go to the station?
No.
Have I done anything wrong?
No.
Okay, why are we here? Watch, if I walk, the police are trying to block me. Why? Why?
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they scaring you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are the policemen scaring you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we must go to train station. There's no crime.
You stop
There's no
circling
crime.
us.
You understand?
You boys stop
So let us
circling
go.
us.
We must go.
Let's go.
This is a 5-year-old.
Let's
Do you like these policemen?
No.
Are they scaring you?
Yes.
Do you want us to leave?
Yes.
Did Dada do anything wrong to Mama?
No.
Did Dada fight with Mama?
No.
Did Mama fight Dada?
Yes.
Is Mama's family nice to me?
No.
Did I bring you here peacefully?
Yes.
Are they peaceful to me?
No.
Am I trying to fix our marriage?
Yes.
Do I want divorce?
No.
Okay. Did I do anything bad to Mama?
No.
Well, there's no crime. I don't ask you to speak Japanese. Okay, come on. I don't want to wait.
Don't wait.
You don't push my boy!
Wait.
Do you understand? Saigon Show sees this. Saigon Show sees this. Get out of my way. Get out of here. You're hurting my boy. Get it next door.
Jack, can you just give us the background to that?
Yes, at this time, my wife had already done on March 29, 2019 and April 20, 2019 re-abduction attempts domestically. I had actually, because she hadn't seen him, I actually took him to Yonezawa. That was Boys' Day. And I took him to Yonezawa to meet his mother, and I asked her to visit with him because I'm just trying to fix the family. She refused, and we were just walking back to the station. And that's what occurred. There's actually several other videos, and the pretext of the stop was they stopped me because they wanted to see my Gaijin card. And then the officer put up his phone and it said fake, genuine check. This is the kind of stuff that foreigners actually are subject to an awful lot here. And the media doesn't really cover it, but it's sometimes, you know, Japan is really great and sometimes it's very scary.
Can I just ask, did your wife call the cops on you there?
Yes, she called the police. And the video before this that I have, we're just standing at the genkan of the door, and I'm just like I am, calm right now. And I asked her, can he stay a few days? She said no. And the point being is, she keeps re-abducting and then rejecting him. And let me get into the other videos here because let me go to the next one. Let me see if I can get this next one. This is perspective of my boy after the first kidnapping internationally. By the way, my boy's been here 3.5 years. He can't speak Japanese because I can't speak Japanese. So look at this video. My boy's asking to go home.
Everything get out of this place, okay?
Okay, wait a minute. Let me ask you this. Do you want me to get an apartment in Sendai?
No.
Do you want to go to Yonezawa, live with Bob and Gigi?
No.
Do you want to stay here any longer, or do you want to leave immediately?
I want to leave immediately.
Do you want to stay here longer and longer, or do you want to leave Japan?
I want to leave Japan tomorrow. Yes.
Where would you want to go?
Hawaii, of course.
You want to leave Japan tomorrow. You want to get out of this country?
Yes.
You're tired of these trains and buses and long walks?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Does it make you feel bad?
Yeah, it makes me feel really angry.
Does it make you feel like a prisoner?
Yeah, it feels like... Yes.
So, this is a little boy who's been alienated from his culture. Now, we were supposed to be living in Hawaii. It's very balanced for a boy like mine. There's 40% of the Hawaiian population is Japanese American. It's a perfect place for my son. He fits in very well. He doesn't fit into Japan. There's nothing wrong with Japan. I lived here for a long time. I used to be partners with Japanese filmmaker Junichi Mimoya for about 10 years. But my boy doesn't want to live here. He doesn't fit. My boy has hair down to here. He doesn't want to have a haircut. The next one here is really, my visa expires again June 23rd. Before I came here, just so you know, I'm starting a hunger strike as soon as this is over, and I'm not going off of it. I'm staying on it. And So I went to the immigration office in Sendai yesterday to get the forms to fill out my visa again. Basically, for 3.5 years, I've had a tourist visa, so I can't even get a job. And the immigration officer, who's a very nice guy, and I want to tell you, the Sendai people have been really great, except for the police. But he said to me, he said, "Oh, your visa expires June 23rd. That just took me back. How does he know the exact date my visa's expired? And I just want to know why MAFA and Ministry of Justice and the police, why they've had me under surveillance, why they follow me around. Yesterday, the police came to my home 2 times before I came here. I didn't even answer the door because we've just been inundated with these constant threats for 3.5 years. They don't know what to do with me. I'm the only one who's ever got my child and held on to him because Japan's Central authorities don't return children. And we're going to have James Cook speak in a bit. James Cook's the first one to get return orders. He's got 2 Hague Convention return orders. It's been over 8 years, he still hasn't seen his children. This shouldn't be happening in a country like Japan. So let's watch this. Look at my boy. I'm explaining to him that my visa is expiring the next day. My visa to be in Japan expires tomorrow. Do you want them to kick me out of this country and for you to go to Yonezawa? Do you want to go to Yonezawa? Who's the person that's always with you? Who's the person that we always have fun? Did Mom come to your birthday last year?
No.
Did Mom go to Halloween with us?
No.
When we asked her for 1 month to see the baby, did she let us see the baby?
No.
Is she acting like a mother to you?
No.
I just want you to know you've done nothing wrong. You're the greatest boy in the world. You're the smartest 5-year-old boy I've ever seen. And we're going to get past this. We need to get out of Japan and have a real life. You want to go swimming in the oceans in Hawaii again, don't you? Let's go surfing and do the things that we do. You want to get back to playing music and riding your bicycle. Are you tired of living in this empty apartment?
Yeah.
We don't have anything? Are you tired of sitting on the floor and having no bed?
Yeah, and I want to go play on my shovels again.
On your shovels? All that stuff your mom left in America. Thank you for your talk here, buddy. I appreciate it. What you can see for the first time is from the view of a child, a kidnapped child, and what they really go through. They're tormented. My boy been diagnosed as having post-traumatic stress disorder, and so have I. Actually, when I watched, I couldn't watch it, but when I attempted to watch the first press conference I did here, I didn't recognize me. Because actually for 6 months, I've had this non-ending tremor in my body. You have no idea the terror of the situation, especially now I don't know where my children are. And I want to say this about in the Sendai court. They're going to make a return order decision about my son in July. But the judge is Judge Miyazaki. There's no interpreter. He ordered a child guidance center investigation, and he ordered it with only the mother without me. He ordered an investigation without my involvement. And so he sent 2 Japanese women who only could speak Japanese to speak with the Japanese mother who's kidnapped my boy again and again. And then the report is actually revealing. They admit that my boy cannot speak Japanese. They admit he hasn't assimilated. But there's some shocking things that I saw. He's throwing trash cans at his grandparents. He's beating up his little brother. He doesn't obey his mother whatsoever at all. And he's clearly rebelling against the system that he's been stuck in. And again, I don't blame the mother. The drastic thing she's done is because of the sole parental custody system. Then the next file here is equally as shocking, and here we go. Do you want police in your house? Do you want these police in your house?
No.
Do you want them to go? Okay. Do you want the police here? Okay, look at this. Did Dad bring you to Japan?
No.
How did you get to Japan?
Because my mom brought me here without my dad's permission.
Did you want to be in Japan?
No.
Do you like being in Japan?
No.
Again, I'm not trying to show you this, that there's something wrong with Japan. I married a Japanese woman. Again, I was partners with Japanese filmmaker Junichi Mimura for 10 years in Hollywood. He gave me my writing career. So I'm not saying anything's wrong with Japan. What I'm saying is my boy he's not Japanese. He has one Japanese parent, and that doesn't make him Japanese. We just don't fit here now, and he wants to go back and live in Hawaii. This might sound silly to you, but my boy's been surfing since he's 2 years old. My goal is for him to actually be in the Japanese Olympic surfing, diving, swimming team. So it's not a hobby. And you know, Tiger Woods started golfing at age 4. My son's been surfing since age 2. My son's been playing piano since age 2. My son's, by age 7, has already almost completed all of high school study. He's a brilliant boy. He's being completely psychologically destroyed by this soul system. It's going to end. Okay, I'm going to play next, and let me see, I want to make sure I get the right one here. This is really interesting. This is an audio file, and I hope it plays.
It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2020, and it is 12:22 p.m. My name is Jack Stone, and I'm talking to Miyuki Suzuki. There are 2 children involved. Miyuki Suzuki wants to remain in Japan with our son named Sky. I want to return to the United States where we lived 15 months ago with my son Kai, also known in Japan as Masayuki Suzuki. So Miyuki, you just agreed with me. True or false? I will return to the United States with my son. That means you voluntarily give consent to me get a passport for my son to leave this country, Japan. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Do you have to agree with me? You never sue me in my college. You have to.
This is what you want.
Yeah.
Right? I go to Cynthia. I can have it translated in Japanese. It'll be 1 page. It'll be stamped by the courts and finished. This is what you want.
Yeah, we are already done.
What you just heard was my wife, and she knows it was recorded. She agreed to give up custody of my son if I didn't sue her and her family for international kidnapping and all my damages. I have over $300,000 in financial damages. I've been financially destroyed. I haven't worked in over 3 years. And being a father, that's a humiliating position to be in, because probably most of you are fathers and you're working really super hard for your family. But I can't even get a job because of my visa situation. And her family has intentionally put me in that position. So this next one is my son. He's been with me so long, he has no memory of living with his mother, and he tells her, I don't hardly know you. I just want to end this.
Today's the 26th. My visa expires tomorrow. On Monday, I'll be overstaying my visa. You understand that? Marco, do you want us to stay in Japan?
Yeah.
Do you want to go with your mom?
Yeah.
Do you want to go with her parents?
Yeah.
No.
No. I'm gonna do that to why?
Do you even want to talk to her now?
No.
Why do you want not to talk to your mom?
Because I don't hardly even know. I just want to end this.
Anybody can see that my boy is being psychologically, emotionally, and developmentally destroyed. And one of Japan's top child psychiatrists has already said my boy suffers post-traumatic stress disorder. He's gone to Tohoku University Hospital. He's gone to the Sendai Child Guidance Center. I took him to counseling. I've done everything that a parent should do. And he's being completely destroyed. And it's this soul system that's destroyed. What you're seeing here today for the first time And the history of this club is a perspective from a child, and you can see he's severely damaged. If you listen to me talking to my wife, you can hear me talking like this, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm going to show you one last video, and then we'll move on to other parties. This is another thing very unique in my case. My wife attacked me in Sendai family court to get custody. She dragged me and my son through court for 1 year. So all my son has ever seen in Japan is police, judges, courts, and lawyers. And he hates them all. In fact, the only time I ever heard my son ever use the word hate when he was describing the idea about his mom taking him to permanently live in Yonezawa. He said, I hate it, actually. And that hurt me. And on that was actually June 7th, 2021, right before this fourth abduction. She had threatened to abduct him out of the school, and I ran to the school and took him out of the school, and I videoed him about how he felt about that, and that was his response. He says, I'm not letting mom take me to Yonezawa. But yet here he is, once again, stuck for the fourth time in this situation, and it's because of sole custody system. What you're gonna see right now is my wife's case was dismissed. I thought I didn't have to deal with this problem ever again. I thought I had my boy and it was over. However, it's not, obviously. And this was a celebration dinner of me defeating his mom in court. Hey. Are you happy I fought mom in court for you?
Yeah,
How come?
because I didn't want to live in Yonezawa.
Why?
Because our place is much nicer, and we're much closer to the beach, and it's much warmer. Those are mostly the three main reasons.
Well, if you could stay in Japan, or you could go back to live in Hawaii, where would you rather live?
I would rather go to Hawaii.
Why?
Because it's a lot warmer than Japan.
How about the oceans?
They're much nicer and cleaner.
Is that pasta good?
Yeah.
Okay, my son's three favorite places are the ocean because he surfs, the pool where he was training to be really, I want a professional swimmer, and the aquarium. He loves the ocean. Yonezawa was a 3-hour drive from the ocean in the mountains. It's not his place. I have other things to show you, but I'm not going to show you any more of this. This is what I want to say, and then we're going to go on to the other guests who really have shocking stories. I actually love Japan. I actually have about 150 published articles, and I'm one of Japan's most published photographers. I met my wife. I was actually 49 years old when I met my wife, and I met her. She worked at the gym. She was my best friend for a couple years, and we had no intimate relationship. I just loved being with her, and I miss her. She's so afraid that I'm taking my children away from her, and I'm so afraid that she's taking my children away. And this wouldn't happen if you have joint custody. And you know, I got a Juris Doctorate, and I went to a law school that specialized in family law. Joint custody system works, generally works like this. The custodial parent has a child Monday through Friday. The other parent picks the child up after school, and they have them for the weekend. On Sunday they have dinner, and they return the child, and then have them on holidays and shared holidays. That system is an incredible system. You have a balanced child because they have access to both parents. And in the West, if one parent makes trouble, police just go to the house and turn the child over. If the parent keeps being problematic, they're brought to the court. And the court can modify any order. It's a very simple system. So if there's a problematic parent, temporarily the child is taken away from them, and they're ordered to go to family counseling classes. And if they do that successfully, they go back to the system like it was. And there's no violence. And you have to admit in Japan, and I've talked to the police officers, you look at it from a police perspective. Would you rather go knock on a door and say, come on, turn the child over like you're supposed to? Or do you want to go to a house where someone's been stabbed 12 times? Or do you police want to be like Jacob Wilson when he slashed his wife's throat in Tokyo family court because his child was missing for a year and a half and he literally went insane? So what do you want? Do the police want to go to another suicide scene from a father who lost his child? And I'm going to end on this. Japan is a member of the OECD nations, and Japan is the wealthiest of all the OECD member nations. However, single parent poverty out of OECD nations is Japan. And one of the problems is when you strip the parent away, usually the father, what happens? Then over time, they get completely alienated. They have no incentive to make the monthly payment that the child needs to have a stable life. And this is causing the poverty in single parents in Japan, mostly parents. And I think that's a disgrace for Japan being one of the richest nations in the world that single parents live in the most crucial poverty out of OECD member nations. It's not working. The modern world that we have is international community. The international marriages are going to continue to grow, and Japan's population, we all know, is declining. So you're going to become more international. My opinion is Japan really is and should be the Switzerland of Asia. This is a great country. You easily could have the best quality of life out of all Asian countries, and as far as I'm concerned, you have the best culture and the most peaceful culture. Why not fix this one simple problem and just make everything good? I'm finished speaking. Let's go to the other guest.
Okay, we have James Cook and Brian Prager who are also going to contribute their stories. We have limited time, so I hope they are online and available. Just wait while we sort out the technical side of it, as they're contributing by Zoom.
You ready, Luna? Yes.
This man has suffered so long. This is Brian Prager. Please listen to his story.
Okay, Brian, go ahead. We got a few minutes here. If you can tell us what you have to say.
Well, it's a complicated issue, isn't it? So complicated. It's occurred to me in numerous ways how complex it actually is during the talk we just heard. I'm here to address the JFCC and the Japanese people and all of the hardworking activists and many parents and children who've been actively and purposefully separated from their children by the Japanese system of parent-child forced separation, child abduction as we've designated here, which is disguised as custody determination. I have to say this, I have to include this in my talk today. I hope there's time for all of us to speak. My most important addressee, I'd like to take this moment to reach out to my son, Teruichi Rui, or Rui Teruichi, who I have tried to reach for 12 years. Rui, I am your father. When you were much younger, I tried every day to connect with you, to see you, to save our precious father and child relationship. However, I received no support from the Japanese government and no support from the United States Embassy. So, Teruichi Rui, I'm your father, and if you hear me, even though we've not seen each other for 12 long, difficult years, you must know that my heart is and has always been filled with longing and thoughts of loving for you. And if you're able to do so, I'd like to invite Rui or anyone who knows and thinks they know of his whereabouts to contact me, to get in touch with me right away, as soon as possible, directly by email at brianprager4, the digit 4, at gmail.com, or my direct home telephone number, which is 917-832-6780 in New York. Please, if you're able to reach me, or if someone listening knows Rui and can reach him, I ask of you that you do so and you help us to reunite. There's so much to say. I've had little time to think about this event, not knowing it's happening. So it's important to say this. Everyone who hears this must know that this can happen to anyone, to any person who marries a Japanese person. Anyone married to a Japanese national is in a situation now, and inevitably, where removal of your child from a parent and removal of a parent from a child is a real material possibility. We are, all of us whose children have been removed, and we're all in it by ourselves, without any help from the Japanese government or the US government, and we are in it alone, and we are drowning in it. So thousands of parents, thousands of children have fallen into this dark, black place. And these are children, make no mistake, living on a volcano of loss, and they will be wounded by this experience. I'm a university lecturer in New York, and I've studied and consulted on this issue with the best of forensic psychoanalysts, with an international reputation. A child that is a wanted child is a child that has parents that he or she can love and who feels valued and wanted by that person. And this is a child which can then become confident in his or her own chance of achievement in life and her own human value. That is a product of the parent-child relationship. And to break that bond, the psychological parent figure produces feelings in children that will remain with them throughout their lives. They may later in life lack interest in their own well-being, in their physical parents, or in their capacity to love and be loved by others, and what's damaged is their love and regard for themselves, and consequently, her capacity to love and care for others, including his or her own children. It's easy for any student of psychology to understand this becomes a family practice. It's what we can call an inherited trauma. And it produces these ghostly transmissions. People may or may not be ultimately aware of the fact that they are transmitting what they have learned from their own parents in this way. These are transmitted into the next generation and the next, and they are psychological deficits. As I was saying, the capacity to love, to care for others, including one's own children. In Japan, there have been at various times these public dialogues and reports that have circulated concerning the need to inculcate values and sociability in children that have appeared in the eyes of some to be decayed. Now, the inevitable voice of authority in these cases has repeatedly sounded alarms that children must be directed to the proper feelings and proper forms of respect and regard for others, but these are not, it must be said, things which can be instructed simply by correct schooling or by more discipline in their educational structures, or a lot of hard but unscrutinized talk about self-responsibility. There have been many of these conversations and attempts to revise schools to carry out these kinds of aims. It's clear from the literature that these efforts are met with frustration. It's imperative, as Jacqueline Rose has written, to know what a child is in order to invest properly in their sweet self-evidence. Without this understanding of how children are unlike adults and what their needs are, it's impossible to use the luminous clarity of childhood and to deny our own anxieties about our psychic and social being in the world.
Okay, Brian, we're more interested in maybe your particular situation.
My particular story. If I can get to that, I will.
We are limited on time.
I understand. It's unfortunate that it's as limited as it is. The state can break parent-child relationships, and that is what happened in my own case. My wife took my son on a 3-week business trip, so-called, to Japan in the year 2010, and never brought him back. It has prevented me from communicating with him from the first month that she was there. I attempted to join forces with a group of left behind parents here in the United States. I went to multiple meetings at the U.S. Department of State and the United States Congress, and we have to recognize the Japanese people are not the enemies in this. Our common enemy, if we can name one, is an intrusive state power that imposes a system of conflict, and I think Jack was implying this, imposes a system of conflict and destruction on children. And it's disguised as custody and determination in the case of Japan. I can witness to the manner in which the U.S. Department of State has responded to this. They responded as allies of Japan's government and diplomats. That is to say, they have motivations which are complex and I'm sure have all kinds of business and military reasoning behind them. And because of that, they have subordinated the interests of our children and of completely, entirely subordinated human rights interests to that of private economic interests and military front, placing them in a frontline position as close to the enemy of the moment, in this case China, as possible.
Brian, can I step in? I want to respond to you here.
I would rather that you did not, Jack, because you've spoken a long time and I heard a lot of stuff and I did not intervene in those.
We do have a limited amount of time.
Right, and so if I can just finish what I was trying to say, it's tempting to call this a failure of diplomacy, but I do not believe that it is, because to say so is to imply that the intention was to resolve these cases. When the United States pushed Japan very hard to sign the Hague Convention, they did so with the understanding that that would make all prior cases of child abduction, of which there are thousands, and about which both the United States Department of State and the Japanese government are in denial. They made those moot. And what I can absolutely testify for certain here is that the state of affairs with regard to child abduction and custody determination in Japan has not changed one bit since I and a group of wounded parents looking out for our kids went to visit the Congress and the United States Department of State starting in 2011, 2012, and numerous times ever since, and I'm sure that James will testify to that. It is a refusal to encounter what is standing directly in front of their faces. Thousands upon thousands of parents and children lost and drowning. I mean, this is not like climate change, where you require the collaboration of numerous institutions, international institutions, and governments worldwide. This is a matter of respect, of learning to recognize long suppressed facts about and absolutely established principles of psychoanalysis and psychology, the well-being of children and their rights, that they are deserving of protection. And the United States Department of State has failed to enforce the laws which would allow them, which would give us any kind of power to fight on behalf of our kids. The idea that we can now continually readdress these questions to government officials and expect them to change their minds is wrong. They will not change their minds. It is therefore a matter for the Japanese people to massify as much as possible their movement for change in this regard. Don't forget, there was a Ministry of Justice figure in an earlier Japanese government who, when it came to power, said, we want to change the Japanese family law structure, among other social reforms. And it was in partnership with the United States, which isolated and drove that particular government from power, that those promises remained unfulfilled. So there is a global situation at work here, not simply a matter, of course, Japanese family law and lawyers like Kensuke Onyuki, who make it a business to drive parents and children apart, That is a business in Japan, a very profitable one for those individuals. But it is a global circumstance in which the Japanese people are not able to become informed and then act. We do not have access to our own governments in this regard. We are not able to make our own policies in this regard.
Okay, Brian, we have to cut it out there because we're running out of time.
Right,
Jack,
I want
do you
James
wanna
to have his
give a
time.
response to that?
Yes, thanks, Brian. Yes, my response to that is this for Brian. I actually right now have a viable lawsuit against the Department of State. Yesterday, the Department of State had to turn over the administrative record in my case. It's very unique. I sued 3 years ago the Department of State, and the judge didn't really help me get a passport for my son. That was a suit. They assigned this new suit to the same judge, and he seems to be changing his position. Yesterday they had to submit the record. They have a June deadline to reply to my suit. The suit is, I sued the Department of State to compel Goldman Act sanctions to finally be implemented against Japan. I have standing.
This would require, Jack, that the Department of State come up with the facts and the correct information regarding the existing case of abduction.
Okay,
And
so
it is in their
Brian, Jack,
bailiwick. They will not produce the correct information. They have been lying about it from the beginning, distorting those facts.
Okay, Brian, in October of 2021, Senator Bob Menendez gave a speech for the Rahm Emanuel becoming the ambassador to Japan. He closed the hearing stating Japan is one of the top 3 worst violators of international child parental abduction. He said right now there's currently more than 475 American children kidnapped in Japan. Now under the Goldman Act sanction, if you have 5 or more unresolved kidnappings, the sanctions must kick in. They must be implemented, and they are non-optional. So I am suing to get the federal court to order the Department of State to do that. And what's really great here is that the Congress has already told the Department of State repeatedly at hearings that they are in violation of congressional intent. I don't want to see Japan destroyed, but I can tell you this. When Israel was one of the worst child trafficking nations, Goldman Act sanctions kicked in and it stopped immediately. As soon as the Goldman Act sanctions kicked in, this will stop. And I'm not going off my hunger strike until this is done. I'll tell you what, I'm not interested in being Japan's Otto Warmbier. I'm not interested in being in a coma and dying. If you can already see my body, I haven't hardly eaten in the past 6 months. I don't have anything left to give. I'm super weak. But I'm not going off this strike, and I'm not being intimidated by your police like they've already tried to intimidate me for 3.5 years.
Okay,
Can we hear James?
Okay, Brian, we don't have time for you anymore. James, if James wants to continue for a few minutes, we don't have a lot of time left, just 15 minutes left if people want to ask questions. James, if you're there, you can say what you have to say.
I am here. Thank you for this opportunity to speak yet again. I will not tell you too much about the background of my case, other than high points. There's probably no case in the history of the Hague between the United States and Japan that has been so rigorously litigated, publicly covered, and written about in international legal terms, and then unfortunately so legally, in terms of international law, so eviscerated as one of the decisions. And it was, my case was one of the very first in the Hague. I wasn't the first, it was one of the very first. And my children were abducted in July of 2014, 3 months after Japan implemented the Hague. And I've been through numerous court battles in the United States and in Japan. I have sole permanent custody of my children in the United States of America. My case has been appealed by my ex-wife to the United States Supreme Court, and I shared oddly on one of the docket dates where they decided to not hear it. It also was the same docket of cases in which they filled or denied hearing former President Trump's cases. And so, nonetheless, I have been through a lot of things. I've testified before Congress 3 times, and I'm very grateful for the people that got me that platform and that opportunity. And so I'm here in support of Jack, I'm here in support of Brian, but the point I want to focus all of the audience on, the correspondents in the audience that are looking at this, that care about this issue. Let me back up a bit. Over time, in the arc of my story, and this time I've been affiliated in and out of groups who have used my story to benefit their cause, and I've agreed to because I hope it would benefit me. So I've bumped into a lot of people, and several groups are great and have all worked together. I wish we all could work together and come to this universal conclusion. But one of the high points that comes out of this is that there have been groups that are in the EU that have gotten many people together. Foreign ministers in the EU have come together, 26 of them, I believe, have issued in writing as a group their disgust, their upset, their intolerance for the way Japan continues to be your national black hole of child abduction. And what everybody universally understands this one point, and that is this issue of international child abduction from all over the world, and specifically the United States, would end on the day that the United States State Department said to Japan, this is it, you're done. Every nation around the world has conceded and said that the day the State Department says we're going to enact Goldman Act sanctions upon Japan, this issue ends on that day permanently. That is all I am asking of the foreign correspondents today in attendance, is to do things like, when you leave from here, maybe file freedom of information requests to the US State Department. What actually have you done? Rigorously, what have you done on behalf of these abducted 475, I'm gonna grow probably to 500 now pretty soon, abducted children? What have you done to fight this issue, to call Japan the carpet? That's the type of thing. Another thing is that there are many personalities in this issue, and you can write about stories, people can read about me. As an aside, I'm a very private person, and I've had to become very public to do this in service of my children. I don't like doing this. I'm not seeking fame, I'm not seeking fortune. I'm not a very good speaker, okay? But I'm doing this in service of my children. And so, please do not be, and I'm saying to the correspondents in attendance, please do not be put off the story, off the scent, if you will, by certain reactions of certain personalities in this situation. Do not be derailed by people using marginal issues like TV and this and that and all that. This issue will get resolved for the world when the State Department is called to task to solve it. It is that simple. There's nothing ambiguous about it. There is no other marginal issue. When the State Department says, this is it, Japan, we're done, it's all over, you will now start returning children. And for instance, we'll start using some of the tools we have, like, let's say, we're gonna start canceling student visas from Japan. We're gonna start severely restricting Japanese travel visas to the United States until you guys start guaranteeing access to people like myself, let alone return my children, but access to me, to my children, and similar parents in my situation. This issue will end, because what that will do is ultimately drive Japan's domestic agenda, and it will work backwards from there. Because I'm not a massive student of history, but one thing I do know, in the 30 plus years of interacting with Japan, is Japan does not do anything unless they have no other choice. That's it.
Okay, thanks, James. Just before you go, James, can you remind us of your situation with your children?
And I have 4 children, 2 sets of twins. They were abducted in 2014. They went on a vacation. I had signed a notarized document with my now ex-wife, wife then, to return them by the end of August. She failed to return them. And I filed for a Hague return, which of course I won immediately. And in Japan's mentality of things, they decided that my oldest children could stay in Japan, but my youngest ones had to come back to the United States. So the Japanese court decided it was in a sort of a Solomon-like decision to split the baby. They gave me 2 and gave her 2. Well, of course, any parent would look upon that and say, you're out of your mind. And so we both appealed, and in January of 2016, I was awarded, I don't want to use the word win, okay? I'll trip up on that word by accident. The children were ordered, all 4 of my children were ordered to return back to the United States. Then I had to go through all the articles of implementation and enforcement. So I had to go on my own nickel and fight through the courts in Japan for enforcement. So we did the strong letter, and then you better comply. Ex-wife did not. Then they fined her money, and she never paid a nickel. And then eventually I had to go to direct enforcement. And I followed to the letter the Japanese rules of enforcement, which comes out exactly like an ambush. And it's in that moment of ambush and that chaos and all these people almost literally busting down the front door of someone's house, although we did not. It's in that moment that my only option at that point is to ask my children if they want to come with me. I can't touch my children, all I can do is ask them. But on that day of enforcement, I was not even allowed in the house. I was not even allowed, after all this time, in the house to talk to my children. So that was cruel. Then I came back to the United States, and then my wife filed for some change of circumstance. The Japanese courts in Japan invented I had no money, and because I provided no I provided no financial documents about my life. They just guessed I didn't have any money. And based on the stuff they made up, in their own opinion, they say we didn't know anything, so we made it up. What they made up is that I was broke, I didn't have a place for my kids to live, and so they ruled there's no place to live. When the most ridiculous reading of grave risk, a change in lifestyles, what they thought was dangerous to my children, they decided not to return them. I was in Hennepin County Court getting the first order of the return of my children from Minnesota court on the day that former President Trump met with former Prime Minister Abe. Days later, the now Prime Minister Kishida was ridiculing the United States government about the Goldman Act and saying they ain't never gonna enforce it. I'm being too flippant, but this is the gist of it. And then a week later, the order came and said the return orders have now been revoked.
Okay, I think we have to leave it there because we're running out of time, James.
Okay.
Sorry about that, but appreciate your input.
No problem.
We have to go to questions and answers, so anyone from the press who wants to ask a question, please come up to the microphone and state your name. Right in the front here, thanks.
Hi, my name is Oki Hirakawa from Nikkei Shimbun. I have a question to Mr. Jack. Listening to your speech, I understand that Japan has many problems in terms of this single custody. And what do you think we can do to change the government? Do you think the implementation of sanctions is an effective way to change the system and to Japan? How can we have a joint custody system in the future?
I think it's a great question. I agree with James that unfortunately it looks like it's going to have to be the United States government implementing the Goldman Act sanctions. I prefer not to see it. I prefer to see your modern politicians, guys like Taiga Ishikawa, who are really a fantastic politician, go to the diet floor and persuade and get this done. And I'd rather see it done internally. This isn't only foreigners, to be honest with you. The foreign parents is a microcosm compared to how many thousands and thousands, actually millions of Japanese parents that are losing their children. This is a Japan issue, okay? That's a big thing. It should be internal to change it. To be honest with you, I mean, the Foreign Correspondents Club did hear former Judge Hiroshi Seigi's book, Court of Despair. He said there's a dark force in the General Secretariat that's controlling all these policies. And then the book was released, Nippon Kaigi no Kenju, that exposed this dark force that he was talking about. Quite frankly, let's just use prose speech. It's the old men who are running this government with this old mind mentality that are not looking forward, but you got these young guys like Taiga Ishikawa who recognize the future of Japan. Japanese have to do with it. I don't want to see sanctions against Japan. That's just strong-arming somebody to do something. That's not the way to do something. That's almost like a system of abuse to like children abuse. Good question.
Any more questions from the media? Are you media?
Yes.
Okay, go.
Hi, Jack. This is Etienne from AFP, French press agency. Can you give us again explanation on what you expect from the Sendai court? I think there is a decision next week. So why does this matter? And secondly, can you give us also a bit details about the hunger strike that you are planning? Because I've read that you want to do it in front of the National Diet Building, which seems maybe a tough place.
It is going to be a tough place. Okay, my wife attacked me in the court, as I stated, and her case was dismissed. And now she filed for divorce through her attorney. She's got one of these attorneys that Brian was talked about very well, who's using like this really corrupt system to attack me. I just submitted a 100-page statement of fact and 397 pages of exhibits and a lot of these videos like you just saw. My wife has no argument. She's impeached upon everything very badly. What do I expect in the court? I actually filed a motion, and because of the way the judge is handling the case, he's basically creating me like a non-human being. He's going through the whole system like I don't matter at all. But my son was with me for 3 years. It's terrifying to be the only foreigner in the room and watch this whole system work against me when actually Japanese law supports me very strongly, especially the continuity principle. So I filed a motion, actually a complaint to Japan's Supreme Court last week I demand the judge's voluntary recusal or the Supreme Court to remove him off of the case. He's entirely incompetent, he's arrogant, and I can't sit here with a Juris Doctorate and my knowledge of family law and watch a foreigner. They look at me like I'm the foreigner, but they're the foreigners to me. And it's hard for me to watch this foreigner try to act like I'm like a lesser human being. And that's a terrifying situation to be in. Now, about the hunger strike, yeah, we might be changing some of our strategy, but I'm planning as much as I can for as long as I can stand or walk to be at the Diet Building. There's no coverage, it's going to be out in the sun, and it's going to be hot, but that's where the politicians are. And if they're going to be walking by, that's where I want to be every day. If I have to go sleep in a park nearby, well, that's what I'm going to have to do. But, you know, it's pretty sad that I'm American and Japan seems to fear the American government the most. You know, I don't want to get injured, and I don't want to be put in a situation over time. But if you saw Thomas Ash's documentary, Ishuku, it's an eye-opener of how the Japanese government treat people who go on hunger strikes. They don't care for the first 30 days. But after 30 days, to use pro speech, they have their oh shit moment. And what they've done to foreigners when they're in the detention centers on 30-day hunger strikes, after that, they release them. They let them go outside for a few weeks, get healthy again, then they arrest them and then bring them back in. That's deplorable. So I anticipate the Japanese government is going to do a darn thing for a month. But Joe Biden is coming here. And by the way, I've already contacted every United States Foreign Affairs Committee member. They all know this is happening. Chris Smith is actually amending the Goldman Act right now to take the power away from the Department of State to make sure, specifically targeting Japan, to make sure the Goldman Act sanctions kicked in. Japan really needs to be twisted like that? I think you're pretty competent officials. They can do it themselves. Now the hunger strike, I'm not going off of it. I'm not going off of it. I've already been on a hunger strike for 6 months. Look at my body, you can see I don't look healthy. You killed me 6 months ago when my boy was taken for the 4th time. I died 6 months ago. So go ahead, you want to put me in that situation? I highly suggest go look at Otto Warmbier in North Korea. And let me tell you something, Japan has a lot in common with North Korea. North Korea kidnapped 13 Japanese, Japan say 17. Well, whether it was 13 or 17, you got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Americans alone and thousands from Europe. Europe voted 33-0 against Japan in June 2020. Nobody's siding with Japan on this. There isn't any nation that sides you. And stop and think about this. What's left? For parents to go take Japanese children hostage, go to one of your schools, take Japanese children hostage, start killing judges inside your courts instead of the other parents? That's all that's left. I don't want to see that. So I'm going on a hunger strike.
Well, we have a question from Piero D'Amelia from Sky TG24 Italy. And he said, what will help you end the hunger strike?
What will help me end the hunger strike is let the Japanese government, the United States government, the Department of State. By the way, the Department of State, when I contact them, they hang up on me. When I call the Tokyo Embassy, because they're supposed to be under the Vienna Convention, do child welfare checks, they hang up on me. They consider me an enemy instead of the parent and children. My children are American citizens. Protect us. Protecting, like Brian said, they're not protecting any of us. They're worried about the interests of Japan, which I think is a good thing. But this has come to an end. It ends with me. You're going to watch and see, because I'm not going off. So you want me to go in a hospital and die? I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to be violent. And I don't want my children to have a future say their dad did something violent to try and end this. No, I'm going to go. My friend persuaded me to go the peaceful route, and I don't want to go the peaceful route. I'm more than angry about this. I'm completely destroyed, and you can still see me. I'm just sitting here shaking because this doesn't go away for half a year. So what can end this, the hunger strike, is Japan immediately, in good faith, start implementing and putting together joint custody. And I want it retroactive. All these foreign parents that don't have access to their children, all the Japanese parents, and there's a lot more Japanese parents, they need access to children now. You've already had class action lawsuits with Japanese children suing the Japanese government so they can see their Japanese parent. That's ridiculous. This is a comedy of errors, and it's not funny. It's got to end. And this is the way it's going to end. So I don't want to hurt myself, but the only way it's going to end is the United States government's got to twist your arm with Goldman Act sanctions and do it, and it's not optional. They're in violation of congressional intent. Or just get your great politicians like Taiga Ishikawa and start doing it.
Yay, Jack, thank you.
Piero also asked, have you had any support from either the Department of State or the U.S. Embassy? Any support at all?
They hang up on me. They're in their third lawsuit against me, and they had to turn over their full administrative record. In the first lawsuit, when they turned over the administrative record, Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz's assistants, Jennifer Wooten, contacted the Department of State and said, don't give his child a passport. And then the embassy sent around, the Department of State sent emails around the staff, like high-fiving each other. Yeah, the Brian Schatz's office was happy that they weren't going to issue my child a passport. Well, my child was with me when they did that. My child and I were homeless in Japan, and I'm actually wearing the same clothes that I wore when I went to the embassy to apply for a passport. And my son was with me. He had no change of clothes. We were the homeless, and they refused to give us passport. And now my son's gone again. The federal courts refused to give him a passport when he was my possession. They refused to give him a passport when I had a $160,000 employment contract to get us out of this hell. That's what they did to us. And now my son's gone. And the United States government could have protected him and gave him a passport so we could have got out of this country because Japan's central authorities refused to assist us. And here's the twist in that. Because you're not trusted in this country. I couldn't trust your Hague authorities because of James Cook's cases and all those cases. I got my child, I took him out of the grandparents' house in Japan. That's what I did. And then we're stranded here. We're hostages. That's what we are. We're hostages. So you want to compare North Korea, Japanese hostages? We are hostages in Japan. And that's what you've done to us. You made us hostages. You financially destroyed me. I'm dad. I have 2 boys I have to put through college. And you know what? My visa's going to expire on the 23rd. What are you going to do? Arrest me? Put me in Ushiku? Is that what you're going to do? Is that what I got to expect next? After you already sent 200 police officers, after you already detained me for 21 days. And in Japan, this is what they do. They rope you up, they handcuff you, they tie you to a chair, and they push documents in front of you. You can't understand them. They say, sign, sign, They arrested me for interference of business. You know what that was? Because I went to Hotetesu and begged for a lawyer to change my visa from spouse visa to caregiver visa. And what has Hotetesu done to me? Legal Service has refused to give me any financial assistance. My lawyers are working for me for free, and if they wouldn't be doing that, I wouldn't even have any lawyers. So, also, while I'm on hunger strike, my lawyers are filing a Hague Convention return order for my son under Article 12 because he's not well settled in your country after 3.5 years. He's back in his 4th kidnapping state. He's been now in 4 homes, 3 different schools in less than half a year. The teachers can't understand him. It's all in the child guidance report. He can't communicate in your language. He's not well settled in your country. He must be ordered back. But here's what you're doing. Under Japan's Implementation Act, Article 7, they're saying, oh, but the father's in Japan. Because you're here, they're probably going to just, Tokyo court is going to just dismiss it. I'm a hostage here. I'm not here voluntarily. I came here because you're an untrusted nation. The whole world calls you a black hole. Do you like being called a black hole? This is not your fault. It's not the reporter's fault. It's not your parents. It's the politicians, the old men. Get rid of them. Vote in. Power the young generation. Get rid of these old guys. Their ways don't work anymore. It's done. It doesn't work in the modern world.
Finally, Pierre says, what about cooperation or support from local NGOs and Japanese associations?
Oh my goodness.
In a few minutes,
Rumi Ozaki right there. In a few days, I'm just like James. I'm a private person. I don't use social media. I haven't used social media since 2015. This wonderful woman, in a few days' time, she has thousands of Japanese parents just translating the videos like you're seeing and putting up the Japanese title, and they are so angry. And by the way, I'm sorry his name slips me because this just came to me. A Japanese parent's going on hunger strike with me. So, and from what I understand, there's others discussing doing it. So this might end up being a really ugly thing for your government.
Okay, we're out of time unless there's any more questions from the media. Okay, we're out of time. Sorry you had to come back, Jack, and I'm glad you did.
What's the question? Somebody asked. Tomo.
Thank you everybody for coming, and that's that for today. Thank you.